A mysterious explosion in the deep taiga, after which there were no craters, only increased radiation. A living person with no memory, whose relatives were found only through genetics. The story of an unidentified corpse whose case remains unsolved to this day. Friends, today I will tell you about the most mysterious stories of our world, in which it is quite possible extraterrestrial races were involved, and in the end, I will show you a real alien. Enjoy watching. The first strange incident I'd like to tell you about occurred on the 30th of June, 1908. It happened in the distant Siberian taiga. What happened there? Actually, no one knows the exact answer to that question to this day. Scientists have been scratching their heads for years, trying to figure out what exactly happened on that hot summer day. But okay, I won't keep you in suspense. I'm talking about the Tunguska meteorite. And here's the strange part. Local residents heard a strange rumble that day, and they also saw smoke coming from the taiga. And those were the days when there simply couldn't be any powerful explosive devices equivalent to a small nuclear bomb. So everyone thought it was a meteorite. But what surprises me the most is the fact that the first scientific expedition to the presumed crash site didn't happen until 1921. And what did they find there? Thousands of fallen trees. Their bark was scorched. Although it's entirely possible that by that time, it was already rotten, and the researchers' observation turned out to be false. The group studied the area where the trees were felled and drew a map. They did this to determine where the epicenter of the explosion, where the meteorite should have fallen, was located. But you know what? It simply wasn't there. The thing is, the expedition found no crater or crater at all. So then they thought the explosion might have occurred several kilometers above the ground. But you know what makes me suspicious about this theory? The fact that no bombs could create such a shockwave, and meteorites just don't explode on their own. They're just ordinary rocks. And there were no fragments either. So everyone started wondering what it could have been. Subsequent expeditions confirmed the observations of their colleagues who had been here before. No crater, no fragments, absolutely nothing. Of course, the area where the epicenter is located was dotted with swamps. And you might say, well, maybe everything drowned there. I would have thought so too if it weren't for underwater research. The scientists were so well prepared that they even conducted research there. But still, they found something. And it's something that scares me a lot. The thing is, special instruments detected elevated levels of radioactive substances. The expedition found traces of carbon isotopes and, attention, cesium. And these substances can appear as a result of decay inside reactors. What could this mean? Where did all this come from? What really happened there? Immediately after the sensational discovery, newspapers were filled with bold headlines. The myth of the Tunguska comet. And in this article, all theories were refuted, including the ones I told you about, and the theory of the comet's fall, except for one, the ufological one. Believe it or not, but it's quite possible that some alien spaceship flew by and knocked down the trees. And given that local residents saw a strange trail in the sky, it could all be true. What do you think? Do aliens really exist? Actually, many don't believe in them. But personally, I'm 100% sure that extraterrestrial civilizations exist. Unfortunately, scientists do everything to hide this fact. What exactly? Well, for example, they did find a theory that could refute alien intervention. And here's what it sounds like. Scientists suggested that there was actually no extraterrestrial body at all. It's all because of our beloved Earth. The thing is, quite flammable gases can often accumulate under it, and sometimes even explosive ones. So, there is an opinion that in the marshy area in that taiga, a regular release of such gas occurred, and it simply detonated. And you know, it sounds quite logical. And radioactive substances could have ended up on the surface along with the explosion. But there's one thing. Remember what I told you at the beginning? The first expedition did think that the fallen trees were scorched, but further research showed that this was not the case. They simply rotted. Because all the wood was rotten, which is why it turned black. And if it were explosive gases, then there would have been a fire in the taiga, which, by the way, there wasn't, because the trees that weren't felled were intact and undamaged. Besides, They found anomalous mutations in them, which occurred precisely because of radiation. By the way, one more important remark. Those radioactive carbon and cesium isotopes that were discovered during the expedition appeared exactly at the moment the explosion occurred. Strange, isn't it? That's what I think too. So this story is still shrouded in mystery. If you thought all of this was just jokes and I was just letting my imagination run wild, then get ready for the next stories. Because now I'll tell you about a man who really disappeared without a trace. What's strange about it? Well, his relatives searched for him for 11 years. And moreover, this man didn't remember anything at all about what happened to him. And it's unclear for how long he disappeared. Because none of his relatives were looking for him, and there were no records of him in the archives. In short, the story begins in 2004. That's when the police found Benjamin Kyle, who was hanging around near a fast food restaurant. They were drawn to his appearance. The man had no clothes on, he was covered in bruises and scratches, and there were strange cuts on his body. Naturally, he had no identification whatsoever. He seemed like an ordinary junkie who should have been put in a cage and sent for rehabilitation. But there was something very strange. The thing is, he didn't remember any details about himself at all. Not his name, not his age, not why he was near the fast food place that day. He described it like this. I just woke up here knowing absolutely nothing about myself. Naked, beaten up, and with some pretty serious cuts on my body. I remember thinking, who am I and what am I doing here? Anyway, the police took him in to determine his identity and find his relatives. And then they realized that no one was looking for this man at all. It's as if no one knew he even existed. Despite many advertisements placed in various media outlets, they even attached photos of this man. How did the police eventually find his relatives? Thanks to complex genetic tests. By the way, several hundred, maybe even thousands of people went through them. Just imagine how labor-intensive that was. But that's not the point. The point is, the genetic relatives also knew very little about this man. Only from some stories were they able to remember perhaps his real name, but nothing more. For me, it remains a mystery. Where did this man disappear to in the first place? The thing is, such long searches for relatives led me to think, could this man have been some guy from the past? After all, his relatives knew very little about him. And 11 years of searching suggests that he probably just wasn't on Earth during that whole time of absence. Even if he just hit his head somewhere, causing amnesia, even if he was beaten up, stripped of all his clothes, money, and documents, they would still try to find him. So maybe he's a time traveler? Personally, I don't rule out this theory, but I lean towards the idea that aliens were involved here too. Maybe they abducted him several decades ago. This could be indicated by the fact that he had not only cuts on his body, but also scars, as if after an operation. And such powerful amnesia should only occur after a very serious head injury, and he didn't have any. In short, it's all very strange. What do you think? Where did this guy come from? Case that happened in Australia that further convinces me that aliens exist. Have you ever heard of the Tamam Shud case? Well, I have. That's why I want to tell you more about it. In short, on the 1st of December, 1948, they found a dead body on the beach of the Australian city of Adelaide. It was an ordinary middle-aged man. Naturally, investigative measures were immediately taken, and the whole city was in an uproar. Everyone was looking for the culprit, the killer who took the life of the poor man. But it wasn't that simple. The thing is, even though the body was in perfect condition, the police still couldn't identify the deceased. Not a single resident of the city recognized their relative in this man. By the way, there are some other oddities. The thing is, his body was in ordinary clothes. Pants, jacket, shirt, and no documents. Only one thing, a piece of paper torn from some book on which was written Tamam Shud. That's why they called this case that. But do you know what this word means in translation? Finished. The most amazing thing for me personally is that not a single forensic expert could determine the exact cause of the man's death. Of course, the first thing people might have thought of was drowning. Just a drunk guy who decided to take a swim in the sea, which led to his death. But it wasn't like that. No signs of drowning, no water in the lungs, so maybe he was shot? That's also off the mark. No gunshot wounds, no stab wounds, no serious injuries that would have led to the death of this guy. Just one thing, the dead man's body. But the scientists didn't stop there. Nowadays, genetic tests are widely used. People have even learned to read human DNA. And from that, they were able to build this man's family tree. And I must say, there were discrepancies there too. The thing is, among the possible relatives of the deceased, they found a man who had no death records. And he, by the way, was born in the early 20th century. It's hardly likely that this guy was hiding in the mountains, studying faith, and managed to live for 120 years. Besides, there was another fact. The man who, according to documents, was still alive, lived a huge distance from where the body was found. Strange, isn't it? But I, for one, won't delve into conspiracy theories in this case. The most recent case that astounds me the most happened in Russia, in the Chelyabinsk region. In short, in 1996, near the village of Kyshtym, an elderly woman found an unknown creature. She reported that at that moment it was still alive. The creature resembled a child as its height was about 30 centimeters. The woman named it Alyoshenka. Why is this story strange? Well, because this creature didn't resemble a human at all. It looked like some kind of humanoid. Unfortunately, this creature didn't survive, and after some time, police officers found it abandoned on the street. By that time, they had already mummified, which is very strange. The thing is, special conditions are needed for this process, and in a couple of months, this couldn't have happened at all. But how did it end up on the street? It's simple. The neighbors of the old woman thought she was having a mental breakdown and sent her to the hospital. When the police discovered this mummy, they were horrified. This little creature, although it looked like a human child from afar, up close you could confidently say it was an alien. The same opinion was held by forensic experts. They couldn't confirm the fact that the found mummy could have been a normal child. And that's very strange. Over time, after the story gained significant attention and the mysterious finding was talked about throughout the country, a gynecologist doctor emerged who told everyone that it was just a regular person. According to her, it was a normal premature baby, which was most likely abandoned in the woods. And for some reason, all of this was immediately hushed up, but this theory doesn't satisfy me at all. Do you seriously think that forensic experts don't know about the strange appearance of miscarriages? Most likely, our government hushed up this case. Why do I think so? Firstly, the story received far too much coverage, and many residents began to panic. Secondly, why can forensic experts accurately determine any human illness, but couldn't identify a full-fledged body? And finally, the body of the Kyshtym Dwarf mysteriously disappeared over time. Most likely, it was taken away by much higher-ranking people from the government to study all the secrets of this creature. Who would leave the body of an alien at a police station in the Chelyabinsk region? That's a hat, I think. Well, and the case was hushed up so that people wouldn't panic. And to prove this to you, I would like to show you an archival photo, which shows this creature. A huge skull, disproportionately large forehead, and very small eyes and mouth. Moreover, the shape of the skull is not human at all. After seeing such footage, you really start to wonder if we are truly alone in the universe. Did you enjoy all these mysterious stories? Write in the comments if you want more. Well, I would like to highlight the fact that all our science is built on guesses and lies. So, such cases can be professionally hushed up if necessary. By the way, about professionals. Friends, you have the opportunity to join our team. If you are skilled in video editing, can voice videos in Russian, English, and other languages, or write interesting scripts, we will be happy to work with you. Write to the Telegram bot. Link in the description, and thank you for watching.